Generally speaking, so the hydrogen buyers today are the same hydrogen buyers that were there yesterday, looking to decarbonize their feedstock. And so to a large degree, you would see that it's the ammonia loops that are, the ammonia producers are in the forefront of this because they see two ways. I mean, there is their traditional off markets participants or buyers that are interested in a cleaner product.
Yeah.
And so they might want a blue or a green hydrogen. Then there is the ones that are addressing the European markets where more skewed towards a green hydrogen mix. And that the idea is that they will transport the hydrogen in the form of ammonia and then crack it back. So the ammonia producers are basically a key demand for hydrogen or green hydrogen or clean hydrogen in general today, because that's the new market that's developing, right? Also, when you think about the Asian markets, it's the same. They're looking about burning ammonia as a fuel.
Welcome to an episode of Strategic Conversations. We host insightful discussions with top business leaders and top business minds. Today, we are hosting Mr. Conrad Muller-Klingspor, the Director of Clean Fuels for Clearway Energy Group. You should listen to Mr. Conrad. He has insights about these new hydrogen projects and decarbonization projects that are really valuable. Mr. Conrad will be a speaker at the Houston Strategy Forum's upcoming 5th semi-annual Carbon Hydrogen Symposium. We are excited that he is going to be on the panel. I'm Ravi Kathuria, the president of the Houston Strategy Forum and author of the management and leadership book, How Cohesive is Your Company, and author of Happy Soul, Hungry Mind. Strategic Conversations are hosted by the Houston Strategy Forum. If you value these conversations, please hit like and subscribe to the Houston Strategy Forum's YouTube channel. Today's episode is sponsored by Cohegic, management consulting and executive coaching firm. Thank you for joining us, and we are looking forward to a great discussion with Mr. Muller-Klingspor. Conrad, thank you, sir. Thank you for taking time to be part of the strategic conversation here today, and looking forward to a great discussion, a very insightful discussion with you on May 15th at our Carbon Hydrogen Symposium. Conrad, share with us about Clearway. What does Clearway Energy do, and what is your role at the company?
Absolutely. And first of all, Ravi, thank you for hosting us and having us, at the event next week. Really looking forward and we're honored to be a part of it. Clearway is the fourth largest renewable company in the U.S. We produce around 10 gigawatts of renewable power, and we have another 33 gigawatts of renewable power in the pipeline that we continue and we aim to develop in the next 5 years. And so that positions us at the top tier of the renewable generation companies in the US. And what's unique about Clearway is that we not only develop the projects, but we also, construct the projects, and we build them and we own them and we operate them. And so when we're looking at assets and we're looking at projects, the same way that we're looking at hydrogen today, we're looking at these to own them for 20 years, 25 years or more. And so when you compare renewable companies at this, let's say, tier,
yes,
you will find that most of them are financial asset holders, right? They're not necessarily in it for the whole life cycle. And so when you take those out, I guess it really leaves you with about two really top players in the US that really follow this model, and one of them it's Clearway.
Wonderful.
And,
so go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, Clearway is also very unique in that tier because we are 50% owned by Global Infrastructure Partners, which today it's BlackRock, and then also Total Energies, which is a European oil and gas company.
Yes. No, I appreciate your your backing is solid. Both BlackRock and Total are very sincere and serious players. They obviously know what they're doing. So congratulations on that backing. And I want to underscore the point you made. We have, of course, hosted a whole series of companies at the Houston Strategy Forum at our Carbon Hydrogen Symposiums. And there are companies who do projects with the intent of flipping them, right? So because there is a higher return at the front end of the projects, right? but we talked about this earlier in our prep call, is that your perspective is very different when you know you're going to have to live with the project. You said, this is my bed, I'm making my bed, I'm going to have to sleep in this bed. It's not for, I am not selling the bed that somebody else has to then deal with the lumpy mattress. I'm going to have to sleep on this mattress, so I'm going to make sure it's done right. And that perspective is very important, and I value that.
Absolutely. So we're not cutting corners, because then if we cut corners today, we'll be facing them tomorrow.
Yes.
And so, the development pathway here to Clearway is very, very tedious and very, specific in trying to get everything right, so that the technology choices that we make will follow through, that the assumptions that we make will hold up, right? Because it's a 25-year game, and we're projecting sort of the energy generation in the next 20 years of an asset that we don't control. Because when you're drilling for oil and gas, you sort of have metrics to understand what you have when you can recover. But with the wind and the sun, you just don't really know how the weather will be, in a week from now, in a year from now, never say 25 years from now.
Yes.
Right. And so that's a real material risk that we need to be ready for.
Yes. Now, so let's talk about your projects. We can see that you have a lot of wind projects and solar projects, right? You have those assets. So tell us about your focus on hydrogen. You're going to be on the hydrogen panel. Why? Excuse me, my throat is bad today. Why is hydrogen of particular interest? Right? Why not stay with wind and solar and focus on that? You have expertise in that. What attracts you to hydrogen? Because hydrogen is not an easy place, right? There's a lot that is changing. There is a lot that has to be determined. Talking about sleeping in your own bed, hydrogen is going to be a little thorny bed for some time. So what is the...
Sure. So when you look at the things you need to develop green hydrogen specifically, you need a solid, like 80% of the inputs that you get, and so the cost that you're looking at the end of the day is the renewable power.
Yes.
So if you're in the business of green hydrogen, having a strategic, let's say, positioning with respect to the renewable power generation, it's, I think, fundamental. And so when you look at, how do you make economic green hydrogen projects, one of the things that we think you would need is to have a private use network, or behind the meter construct, where you generate the renewable power that you need for the asset, but you're not necessarily connected to the grid or depending on the grid.
Okay.
And so that way you're saving on transmission and delivery charges. You're saving on some of the rep charges that are applied. And so you're basically saving all the basis risk that you have from moving power from one zone to the other. And so that will help your economics. It will also help for your underwriting and sort of your certification of the green, how green is your hydrogen, right?
Right.
That's one point. So when you look at Clearway and sort of why would Clearway get into hydrogen? Well, we basically are one of the leaders in the most important component or feedstock for that hydrogen, which is the power.
Yes.
So we're very comfortable with the power. And you might argue, well, but you're not comfortable. That's electrons, not molecules, and it's a completely different game. And I agree. I came from oil and gas, 17 years in oil and gas, now working in renewables for over a year. And I can really see the difference between the electron mindset and the molecule mindset.
Right.
But it's nothing that can't be bridged. And so Clearway, in that essence, with the backing that I mentioned earlier, which I think becomes relevant, which is having, GIP and having Total Energies, then it starts to become a hybrid where you have the renewable expertise, but you have also the knowledge base and the access to markets for those molecules.
Right.
And so for Clearway specifically, it makes sense. And maybe other renewable developers might just choose to stay selling power, and there's plenty of opportunities to sell power today with these projects. We think that as we build a new industry and we're building, the new energy of the future, the same way that we're providing renewable power today, we want to continue to provide renewable energy in other forms tomorrow.
Right. Now, power is an important feed for green hydrogen, but we have another problematic resource, right? Feed, which is water. And
Yeah.
they have said that the Third World War will be the reason for the Third World War will be water. So water is a precious commodity. The amount of hydrogen that we need to produce is in huge quantities, which means we'll need even huger quantities of water, right?
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So where is the water going to come from to produce green hydrogen? And you need clean water, right? You need clean water. We cannot turn to the seas because then you have to desalinize. You have to spend energy to desalinize the water. So you
Yeah.
need fresh water, which in itself is a challenge. How do you all plan on solving that?
So today, for the projects that we're looking at, and we recognize like the water availability generally is an issue, right? Not only for hydrogen production, but for the world. And so we need to be conscious in the use of water. The projects that we're looking at today, have a construct where water is available. And so we're sourcing water from different sources. When you look about the size and the scale that you would need to like shift the complete industry to green hydrogen, it starts to become, challenging. And I think at some point we'll have to look into desalination to really make it work. Like in the future, I think today there's enough water sources that we can tap and continue to build upon. If you were thinking about desalinating water today in terms of the cost structures,
Yes.
there's been significant amount of progress being made in terms of the cost of desalinating water.
Okay.
Nevertheless, today, green continues to be a premium product. And so you continue to add cost to it, then you just make it like, even more challenging. Like a blue hydrogen product today is probably around half of the cost of a green hydrogen product, of a competitive green hydrogen product today. And so you really have to be a market participant that is interested and willing to pay the premium.
Yes.
So that's why we see green as a niche market, a very premium market that is either policy driven or driven by the conviction of some companies.
And speaking about blue hydrogen, at the Houston Strategy Forum, we have hosted companies which have different technologies. I'm not a chemical engineer, but there are technologies that split methane into hydrogen and carbon black, right? So they don't combust it. There are technologies that will not combust, but still use it to produce power. And then there are others which will combust the methane and then capture the carbon dioxide from flue gas, right? So there are all these technologies exist. Is there a technology that has caught your eye that you say, look, this is of all of those, this is probably a better technology, has more scalability and more reliability and cost effectiveness?
Yeah, sure. So for blue hydrogen, we go back to the issue that we were discussing earlier about bankability, right? And so when you start looking into the new technologies and new ways of doing things, there's a process to get those at a stage where they're bankable. And so that will take some time. And sure, producing carbon black is a good way to, like, it's a good solution. If you can't sequester the CO2 at your site, you might be thinking about, converting it to carbon black, utilizing that CO2 in that form. The challenge there would be, well, you're not really sequestering the CO2, you're utilizing it.
Yes.
So that emission will eventually come back, right?
Yes.
Maybe not today, but at some point, through degradation of that molecule there.
Yes.
So to answer your question, I think from the technologies that we have today, ATR technology seems to be at a place where, from a technology standpoint, it's robust.
Right.
The CO2 capture technology that goes along, it's been also pretty much tried and tested. And so if we look at those things and combining them, there's some projects that are actually proposing over 95% carbon capture on their blue, and that's a challenge. So if you're looking at a green product that has very low carbon intensity to maybe none, and then you have a sub 500 grams of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen, blue hydrogen. Well, I mean, that's pretty close, right?
It's compelling.
So,
yes. Yeah.
very compelling. And so as an off-taker, as a buyer of that hydrogen, like, you already took away a big chunk of your CO2 emissions by buying the blue hydrogen. So the incentive to buy the green, like I said earlier, it has to be a conviction, has to be policy driven.
Yes.
Those things together will help continue to drive the market.
Yes. So speaking about driving the market, you're investing in hydrogen. You talked about hydrogen, and your Clearway has the energy available, right? You can figure out the water equation. The drive to hydrogen has to be driven by customer demand. There has to be demand in the economy for hydrogen. Where are you seeing the demand? Who is knocking? Who is calling you? Who rings you every morning and say, Conrad, do you have my hydrogen ready?
I don't think there's anyone calling every morning, but at
Oh, no.
least, there
You want that to
is,
happen.
yeah, I wish. Generally speaking, so the hydrogen buyers today are the same hydrogen buyers that were there yesterday, looking to decarbonize their feedstock. And so to a large degree, you would see that it's the ammonia loops that are, the ammonia producers are at the forefront of this, because they see two ways. I mean, there is their traditional off markets participants or buyers that are interested in a cleaner product.
Yes.
And so they might want a blue or a green hydrogen. Then there is the ones that are addressing the European markets, where more skewed towards a green hydrogen mix. And that the idea is that they would transport the hydrogen in the form of ammonia and then crack it back. So the ammonia producers are basically a key demand for hydrogen or green hydrogen or clean hydrogen in general today, because that's the new market that's developing, right? Also, when you think about the Asian markets, it's the same. They're looking about burning ammonia as a fuel.
Yes.
And so that might be green or blue ammonia, depending on the off-taker in the market and the subsidies they get. And so it's the same again. You're looking at the ammonia producers being sort of the key strategic players in this transition time where we're starting to add new clean energies to the mix.
And how do you see hydrogen getting transported? You mentioned ammonia. Ammonia we're going to have Mr. Jacob from LSB Industry, and you were involved in this Houston Ship Channel plant. You were part of that before you joined Clearway, so congratulations on that. But he makes the case how ammonia is an excellent hydrogen carrier, right? And we of course have methane, but then it has to be compressed into LNG liquefied, right? And so LNG is a hydrogen carrier, but ammonia, he of course lists many pros for why ammonia is a better carrier than methane is. Where do you see the best mechanism to transport hydrogen? Is it via pipeline? Is it liquefying hydrogen? Yeah. Is it ammonia? Is it methane? Where do you see it?
It depends. And so let me challenge that thought a minute. So I would argue that LNG or methane is a hydrogen carrier to the extent that what you're burning is the hydrogen, but still, the energy of the methane is containing the hydrogen, right? Yes. But once you burn it, you will have the CO2 issue. So yeah, you're carrying the hydrogen, true, but then you're carrying the CO2 with it. And so to produce a clean hydrogen or a clean methane, if you would, you would need to go back and strip out the CO2, sequester it. And so there is a lot of talk about like the synthetic methane or the e-methane, which is basically taking green hydrogen and adding biogenic CO2 to it. And that will effectively be like an LNG. Right. Now, going back to transport question, it really depends. It depends what your application is. It depends where you're located, where your market is. And so if you're producing hydrogen, let's say in West Texas, and you want to bring it over to Corpus Christi, for instance, you'll probably need a pipeline. Any other form of transporting that doesn't make sense. Then the challenge with that is, well, the cost of the pipeline, the underwriting of the pipeline, the volumes you need to really make it economic. And so it starts to really get complex. So the larger the pipeline, the more basically underwriting challenges you will face, the more volume you need to offtake from that pipeline to really make it work. Now, if you're going to consider international markets, some people are talking about liquefying hydrogen and shipping it overseas. That just requires enormous amounts of energy. And keeping that, it's really cryogenic. So it's a lot colder than the LNG ships.
And LNG, yes.
It's also like a cost barrier. And then the energy that you would lose in keeping that cold and then liquefying and then regasifying it once you're at your destination, it's not really effective. So I'm on the camp of the ammonia being the carrier, and
Okay.
actually the fuel. I think fuel ammonia, I think it's a breakthrough. And so we look at companies suggesting methanol as a shipping fuel. Like, yes, sure, it works. It's the easiest route today.
Right.
But the reality is you need biogenic CO2 for that methanol to be really clean. And there's not a lot of biogenic CO2 to go around. So it's not really scalable. And so ammonia, you don't need the biogenic CO2, right? You capture the nitrogen from the air and you add the hydrogen. So once you could basically produce it anywhere where you have the sun and the wind, or that you have a blue ammonia facility there, or sorry, blue hydrogen facility that will strip out the CO2. And so I'm an ammonia believer. I think that ammonia is really the end game where we should be aiming to.
Yeah, Conrad, I cannot wait to host you on May 15th because I can sense the seriousness of the discussion that we'll get into with you and the other speakers. It is going to be a fantastic, phenomenal discussion. Conrad, what is going to be your message on May 15th to the world? What will your 30-second message? You said this is.
Yeah. I think, we're building something new. We're building a new economy, the new energy mix that we want to see in the world. And so it's challenging. It's going to cost a lot of money.
Yes.
We'll probably make mistakes. We need to make sure that we get it right. This mistakes could cost the people and to the public in general to generate fear. And so we have to be very, very conscious and responsible in developing our projects and making sure that also the things that we're putting forward today are actually sounding reasonable, because there's a lot of noise in the market from projects that are being proposed that are not viable or not economic. And so that noise also needs to be cleared out from the system so we can really start moving forward on realistic and achievable opportunities.
Wonderful. Wonderful, sir. See you on May 15th, a week from today. Looking forward to it. We're going to have fun. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ravi. Thanks for having us. See you later. Bye-bye.